Um, okay, we're going to get started. Before we jump into anything new, I did a lot of talking at the last class about what Lech Lecha means and about the journey and Avraham journey to himself and what it means for us. And we didn't have a lot of time to really integrate or discuss it. So I want to first open if any of you had any follow-up thoughts, questions, comments based on what we discussed and ended off last week with. I know, Erica, you said you had a lot of thoughts. Is there anything you want to share? Or are you ready to move forward? You're on mute, Erica. We can't hear you.
Well, when we left off, I remember saying that Abraham had God at his side and God was speaking to him. And it was it was an incredible thing that he had the presence of God around him to guide him. And I said that I feel like part of this is teaching us that we should also be aware that God is all around us and helping us through our journeys, even in this was a huge milestone for him, and it was a big leap of faith, and God was there. And I think we also have to remember that God is there during all of our times.
Exactly. And I love that you shared that. And so we ended off, and we could talk about that a little more, is that how do we feel God's presence and God's support and God's love and guidance if, we're not like Avraham. He doesn't come and just appear and talk to us. And we're not like Moses. He doesn't come to us in a burning bush, so, but yet we're supposed to apply this to ourselves and feel that, we're also on a journey and we also have to move forward. And we also have, this presence of God moving us forward. And so we talked about that. One of the reasons that it's hard for us to really hear God's messages is because we live in a world that's dictating that all the solutions and answers are outside of us. Ask your parents, ask your friends, ask the local temple, look inside the books. Everyone else will know the answers for you. Don't trust yourself. We're like raised in a society that's really breeding codependency and lack of your own trust in yourself. And also has been no space, and especially since the boom of technology is a really great tool, but it's also has a negative side where it's created less and less and less space for introspection and really getting to know ourselves and having quiet time. And so whenever time, it's like, oh, let me let me turn on the TV, let me, read something. And it's like, we're so distracted. We have so little time for introspection and going inwards. And we talked about last time that really, if we want to feel that presence of God hugging us, guiding us, supporting us, telling us what's next, what he wants from us, how to move forward, we have to have the courage and the willingness to be still and to be silent. And the voice is inside, the presence is inside, the energy is inside of us, the wisdom's inside. It's the opposite of what we've heard all along. It's like no one can really know what God's telling you. You're the one who knows, and you have to be willing to listen. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't get support from others, but like the best kind of support we can give to someone else is to help encourage them to listen to themselves and trust their intuition. And I want to say another thing is that it's so powerful. Like people are discovering the truth about our bodies. This is just like such a powerful thing that Kabbalah has talked about, for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years, that we've never really understood. But like the power of the body and how the body actually works together with the soul. So, we have different parts of us. We have our brain that's like constantly flowing and, stimulated and telling us things. Then we have our heart, we have our feelings. And then we have our body, like we feel intuition, or we feel instinctively unsafe, or we feel anxious about something, or, we're in someone's presence and we feel uncomfortable, or we feel compelled to do something, or we feel pain in our body. Like we have a stomach ache, or, tightness in our neck. And basically what Kabbalah has said all along, and nowadays we're starting to understand, is that the body is actually on the highest level, and the body is the communicator of the soul. And so it's like we've been trained not to trust our body and just push, push, push against our body. But it's like when we feel something, like we have to build this relationship with our body and like listen and know what's coming up for us and tune in. I also mentioned that the Shema Yisrael is that, and I'm going to say it again and again because it's so powerful, that the Jewish meditation prayer of covering our eyes and saying Shema Yisrael is like quiet down all the noise outside and go inside yourself and listen to what is God saying inside of you. So this is really like, you want to feel God, you want to know what's next, you want to feel calm and peace and clarity. Like we have it. It's just the willingness to go in and go deep and go quiet. Erica, does that kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amazing. So let us read. We're going to continue on Abraham's journey. Erica, would you like to read?
Is this on 77:2?
77:2. Yes.
Okay, I'll read. This is a big one. I'll read the whole thing. God said, I promise that the
Yes.
move will be to your benefit. Firstly, you will enjoy the immediate benefit of distancing yourself from the unwholesome, idolatrous environment of Haran. Secondly, even though traveling generally decreases the odds of having children, and since you are childless, you're hesitant to undertake a journey. Be assured that I will not only make you and your wife fertile in your new home, whereas if you stay, you will continue to remain childless. If you undertake this journey, I will multiply your offspring and thereby make you into a great nation. Thirdly, even though traveling involves many expenses, I will bless you with wealth in your new home. Fourthly, even though traveling usually adversely affects a person's renown,
Yeah.
as he is forgotten in his former home and is not yet established in his new home, I will make your name great and famous here. And fifthly, you will become a source of blessing. I will endow you with the power to bless others, and I promise you that your blessings will be efficacious. In addition, you, your son, and your grandson will be collectively considered the patriarchs of my chosen nation, who henceforth will address their prayers to me by invoking your names. Nonetheless, even though they will mention all three of you in the first blessing of their prayers, you alone will be mentioned at the end of this blessing in recognition of the fact that you were the only patriarch whom I required to leave his family.
Thank you. You want to share any thoughts? Yeah. So it's interesting. A lot of promises, right? I will make your name great. I will give you wealth. I will multiply your even though you've been childless, I will multiply your offsprings. I will give you a lot of blessing. So, I mean, it's wonderful, right? I mean, so on one level, it makes sense. Like here, God is telling Abraham to go to the unknown, to journey away from his family, journey away from his comfort zone, everything he's known, and wander into not only to a new place, but a place that God didn't even clarify, because he was seeing like if Abraham would trust. So it's like, okay, he's giving him, it's like you tell a kid, do your chores, clean your room, I'll give you, I'll give you a lollipop. So it's motivation, but like, so on one hand, okay, God's giving him Abraham motivation, but then we could look at this a little deeper and ask, does Abraham really need motivation? Like clearly who Abraham was at 3 years old, discovered God, was willing to walk into the furnace, trusted God, like broke all the idols in his father Terach's store and was willing to risk his life. Like, I mean, someone on that level, does he really need all the promises? And like, why would he need like wealth and fame? And, wouldn't you think that someone like Abraham would be above all that and wouldn't like be tempted and need that like almost like bribery? Any thoughts? It's a good question, right? So it's just a beautiful answer that I can definitely relate to, I think we all could, is that it's not that Abraham needed a bribery or needed, any of these rewards or promises. He would have gone even if God didn't tell him anything. And Abraham definitely didn't need wealth and definitely didn't need fame. And that's not why he was doing it at all. It was zero ego. It was never been ego. But what again, remember we talked last week that God is talking to us in these stories the whole time. Like he's talking about our own personal journey as well. And what he's saying is that whenever each of us, like when we have to go to a next step, when we have to journey to a new level, when we have to change a bad habit or evolve ourselves or, move to a new town or get a new job or get into a new relationship, there's always unknown and there's always fear. And a lot of times, or we feel very compelled, like, I have to start this project, or I feel God's calling me to do X, Y, and Z. But then all the fear comes in, and it's like, wait, but I don't have the resources. And what if I'm not comfortable? And what if, like, I won't be successful? And it's just like all the fear comes in, and we start like over analyzing and evaluating, and it's just so scary. And so, what God is basically promising to all humanity for all times through the promise to Abraham, because he's the forefather, right? Is that, and he trailblazed the journey of getting from the comfort zone into becoming his greatest authentic self and becoming a trailblazer of light and, making this massive impact in the world. That he's saying, if you feel compelled and you're following God, you're following your soul, and you feel that it's time to move forward or time to do something, or you want to change, a certain behavior, a certain way you do things, yes, all your negative thoughts will come to try to stop you and give you all the excuses, the shame and the guilt and the fear and the anxiety. It's because the demons come, the other side, like the other forces, right? The negative side will come and try to block you from moving forward, from becoming more peaceful, from having more light, from getting beyond your natural state. um and so God's saying, I know it's scary, but I promise you that whatever whatever you need, I will give you in order for you to be successful. If you're doing this not for your ego and not, for anything negative or any of your self, not for self-serving reasons, but you're really doing this because your soul is telling you, and you're doing this for the greater good of the world and to help humanity, help you, the universe, I will give you the money you need. I will give you the success. I will give you the people. I will give you everything you need to set you up for success. And I want to say, on a personal level, it's so powerful because I can really relate to this. Like, there were so many things in my life, in my journey, as I evolved, that I felt very strong that I want to do things. And I was just like, wow, I feel like this is my next step, but how am I going to do it? And I don't even know where to turn. And I don't have the people, I don't have the resources, I don't have the time. And it was like, when I put the intention out there, like, okay, God, I'm willing to do this, but set me up for success and guide me and, help me figure out how to do this. And I just like created that space, but I didn't control it and I didn't make it happen. I really felt like the all the tools that I needed. And I'll give you an example. Some of you know that I've been starting these coffee talk videos on YouTube. So just these like 5-minute short, meaningful messages. And I've been wanting to do it for a long time. It's an idea that was playing in my head. Well, actually in my soul. It was like came through from my soul. And it was like, I felt like this message, like put some little thoughts out there, and I was just like, well, I don't know how to do videos and I don't really feel comfortable and I don't know how to, like, I'm not technical, and I had all these excuses why. And then we hired someone to do marketing for our Chabad, and I just mentioned these videos, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, absolutely, I will help you. I'm great on social media. I'm great. I'll film it for you, and I'll make it happen." And and she was like one step that really pushed it along. And then I met this other woman recently, and I was again just mentioning about the videos, and she's like, "Oh, I do branding, and I used to have a branding consulting thing, and I want to help you, and I have all these ideas." And it was like I didn't make it all and any of it happen. Like I heard it in my soul and I was willing to do it, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. And so all the different pieces came along in order for me to be successful. Um, so I think that's the main thing. It's just like to know that if you really feel strongly about things and you say, God, I'm willing, but help me have the resources, help me have the tools, help me have the energy, help me have the strength, and like just be patient and willing. It will, if it's meant to happen, the road opens up for us.
I had a thought. So I found interesting the power of the blessings here, and how that's one of the things that God is endowing Abraham with, the power for him to bless, and also for him to be blessed, also him and his family. And to me, that just shows how important that energy is. Like, so important that it would be mentioned here as a promise that God made to Abraham to influence him in moving forward in his journey. Like how, and even today, how powerful, I mean, for me at least, how powerful blessings are. If I give my children blessings on Shabbat, and if I were to receive one, like it does change the energy for me. So I thought that was very apropos for life.
Yeah. You know, it's so
I
beautiful. Actually, there's a Jewish. Yeah, you want to say something? So go ahead.
it's funny. I wanted to say suddenly after I just heard this pasuk, this paragraph. Suddenly I realized the Amidah, the blessing on the Amidah, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It became so powerful all of a sudden. I never, it really, wow. This is like, it made it really come up and made it more understanding for me. So.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, like this is how it all began.
Right.
And it all started. Ashley, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I just I think I really read this passage as being an invocation to faith, and faith being the ultimate sort of path to abundance. And it's really interesting how God sort of cautioning against relying on the rational mind. Like, the rational mind will tell you that, traveling decreases your odds of having children. The rational mind will tell you traveling is expensive. All the rational, logical, kind of ego-driven thoughts would lead you away from this path. So you have to let go of all reason and lean into faith. And that's ultimately the path that leads you to abundance. So I think it's a really powerful sort of invocation of faith.
Yeah, it's so true. And thank you for sharing that. I'm thinking there's so many things like, again, in my own life, where when we bought this home center for our Chabad, it was absolute a leap of faith. It was against all logic. We didn't have the money for the down payment, definitely didn't have the money for the mortgage. And it was yet like we saw this house and we were like, my husband and I, both of our souls, we walked in the house and we're like, this is our home. This is our center. It was like, we just knew it, but yeah, it wasn't rational. And then it was like, well, if we know that this is ours and we feel it so strongly, then it's like, if God wants this to happen, it will happen. And then we took a leap of faith and we jumped in, and it was like, all fell into place. It all worked out, like, in a beautiful, beautiful ways. So yeah, it's like when we need to do something, if we have faith, and like, also, a big thing people ask us, like in more religious homes or Orthodox home, like we tend to have more kids, larger families. And people always ask us is like, how in the world, how are you going to afford it? How are you going to pay all their, college tuitions and everything? And it's like, there's a certain sense of like, okay, you have to know your body and your soul and your energy and be able to like, not go beyond what you can handle. But when it comes to like, all the logistics of figuring out exactly how you're going to make it work, it's like, if God gives you a soul, he'll give you the package of what it needs in order to take care of this soul, because it's a gift ultimately. So it's a very, very different way of living and operating based on the world, the world's rules. Mary, do you want to jump in and say anything?
No, thank you.
No. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else here. Yeah. I mean, it's going back also to like trusting our body. Our body doesn't lie. And my sister Khani is on here, so I'm going to ask Khani to jump in and share more about this, because Khani is an amazing example of listening to her body. But it's like, how do we know if something's right if it doesn't fit into logic? It's like, in our rational mind, it's like we can't afford it, or it doesn't make sense, or how is it all going to work out? How do you know? The best test is your body. If there's any resistance or any tenseness or any like panic, it, like, again, not in your heart, because your heart could have anxiety, but your body could know. But it's like, if your body's telling you like something's stopping me, something's resisting, then you have to listen to that. But if your body's saying yes, 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 and your mind is screaming at you, you listen to your body, not your mind. Your body's much deeper. So it's been powerful for me to journey away from my mind and into my body. And it's profoundly helped me really move forward in so many ways, because I can't really be a good judge of my mind, because there's countless voices and demons and all kinds of, different levels of voices in my head that it's too complicated in there, So
I just want to
Khani,
add one
do
more
you wanna
question
jump
for
in?
your sister on that. And that one more
Yes.
question, sorry, Hani.
Go ahead.
I feel like when you come to a crossroads, it's my mind is telling me one thing, but my heart is telling me another. So is that your body, or is that a different, is that a
That's a good
different
question.
voice?
I think the body's even deeper than the heart. But I'll have Khani jump in and share. If Khani, are you there?
Yeah, hi. I don't really know what to share other than to say that a lot of times I'm in my head and I feel anxious and overwhelmed and confused, and like sometimes it's like the more I rationalize or think about it or try to figure things out, it doesn't work. But when I get quiet and get into my body and the way that I do that, everyone finds their own way. But the way that helps me is nature, but also just listening to meditation music and just breathing. And when I have like a bunch of thoughts like run through my head, I kind of just like try to not pay attention to them and breathe myself into my body. And it's not even so much I have to do anything. It's just more learning to be instead of to do. And when I'm in that state of being, it's not something that I have to figure out or something that I have to think about. It's like my body knows, and like I'll just suddenly know, or I'll just suddenly start crying because I'll have like I'll understand what's going on or why I'm triggered, or I'll feel something in my body that hurts and I'll put my hand on it and I'll be like, what are you saying? And I'll hear it. And it's not something that is in the mind or something that I could ever figure out in my head. It's more just being quiet and listening, and my body will tell me. And it's not really something I could explain because it's not really explainable. I don't even understand like how it happens, but it's just I don't know. I guess it's just learning to be quiet and listening. And it took me a long time to learn how to listen to my body. I mean, I personally do like trauma work that helps get me into my body. Maybe some people could do it on their own. I don't know. But I mean, I don't really know like what you want to hear, Nakama, but that's kind of what came up for me.
No, it's good. But do you have anything you could add about the difference? Like what Erica said is a very good question. It's like, okay, we can know like our mind and our heart, but like, how do you differentiate the body versus the heart?
Oh, well, so like my mind sometimes, so for example, sometimes a situation will happen. Let's say somebody says let's say I know that I shouldn't care what other people think, and who cares? And in my head, I know like, so what, that person thinks that, like, it doesn't matter. And I really feel like it doesn't matter, but in my body, I feel tense. Like it feels like it does matter, but in my head it doesn't. So it's like, or I don't know, I had a situation once where this like person, she like yelled at me. I'm like, she was really crazy. So like, I didn't care. I was like, whatever. And I acted very healthy. I'm like, I'm going to walk away if I'm going to be yelled at. And I have a nice day. And I walked away, and I was very like secure and comfortable. And it was very obvious to me that it wasn't my issue, but my body was shaking. So it was like, my head knows one thing, but my body feels another. And what I'm realizing is that the body has like stored trauma or memories or whatever that like, it doesn't, the mind can believe one thing or say something or tell you something, you know you should do this, but the body doesn't yet understand. And I think that it just, it's for me, it's about like, a lot of times I think that's where anxiety comes from, because it's like you feel both at the same time, and it could feel like you're crazy, like you feel something different than what you're thinking. But I think that, I don't know, everyone finds their own answers to that, but for me it's just like recognizing that like I don't really have control over how my body feels. Like if my body feels something, then something needs to be heard, and it's just like having compassion or giving myself permission or asking God to like help me heal whatever it is, or telling my body like, I don't know really, but it's just, it's very, I really experience the body feeling different than the brain, and I think that everybody has their own process of how to handle that. I don't know.
Right. Thank you, Khani. And
sorry, go ahead.
What were you gonna say? I was just gonna say that I was gonna thank Khani. Thank you. And what Khani's saying is that there's both aspects. So like our mind can tell us, big deal, like this person is just messed up, I shouldn't care. And our body's like Khani's saying, shaking. So that's an area where you don't listen to your mind either. You listen to your body, because you listen to your mind's saying it's not a big deal. But if your body's shaking, then you have to trust your body, and you have to give your body a hug and say, you know what, body, for you, it's a big deal. And I'm going to sit with you and hold you through this until you feel calmer. And then the flip side, our mind is telling us, don't do it. But our body is saying, like, it's like you feel like you think about an idea and your body like leans forward. It's like it wants it. It's excited about it. It's passionate about it. And so on the flip side, in a positive way, if your body is feeling compelled to something and your mind is telling you no, again, you trust your body. But it is a bit different than the heart, because the heart has a lot of emotions, and in the heart, there's also ego. The heart is very complicated. I mean, the heart also has all the positive emotions, but it is a bit deeper, but it's complex, but it's something to just keep exploring and listening and journeying into yourself. Ashley, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add, you can take this all with a grain of salt, but, I've done a lot of research into kind of this heart brain thing. And there is a point of view among sort of scientific mystics that the heart is really the seat of intuition. And when you sort of measure the energetic fields produced by the heart, it's like 100 times stronger than by the brain. And, there's a lot of evidence that the heart is precognitive, and actually that, it is feeding messages to the brain versus the other way around. And it knows things, you can sort of demonstrate in studies that it knows things before they happen, and the brain doesn't. It's sort of receiving that message from the heart. So just kind of to Erica's question, I think the brain can feed false signals into the body and lead the body to feel like it's in fight or flight mode. And that's not actually necessarily real. But when you quiet your brain, your monkey mind, you give your sort of more deeper intuitive systems a chance to sort of take over and communicate deeper truths. Like that's kind of how I think about it. So anyway, just that way you will.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so let us continue.
That was really great, because I just had one thing to add. What Ashley just said, my next question was going to be, how do I get these things in sync? So that was between Nahama, Ashley, and Hani with, it basically goes back to being quiet and bringing things back together and bringing things into you. So not so easy to do, but at least I have something for the future.
It's not
To
so
look
easy,
to.
but it's just it's honestly a decision. Like, it's like whatever we do, it's like a decision we make. It's like every day I'm going to exercise, or I'm going to eat healthy food, or I'm going to work on my relationship. I'm going to try to like light Shabbat candles on Friday night. Like, you make a decision and then you work on it, so it's like this kind of reality of like, I'm going to make a decision to start nurturing my body soul connection and starting to listen more to myself, and like try to be committed to like spend time every day being silent, getting beyond the mind and listening to my heart. And when I'm anxious, to like not try to fix it and be quiet or journal, or and like just take little steps towards it. It is a decision because it's not what we're used to. So it's like it's not about perfection. It's not about having all figured out. It's starting to work on that and just be aware. Okay. Let's read. Mary, could you read 3 and 4, please?
I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse he who curses you. Your material success will be so great that all the families of the earth who esteem material powers will be blessed using you as an example. When someone wants to bless someone else, he will say, "May you be like Abram." Abram set out as God had directed him, and Lot went with him. Abram was in his 75th year when he left Haran, although his father Terah was 145 years old at the time and would live for another 60 years. The Torah tells us of his death before it tells us of Abram's departure, in order not to highlight the fact that God prevented Abram from fulfilling his filial obligation of parental respect by making him leave his father unattended to tend for himself in his old age.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I found that interesting how on one hand, God tells him to leave from tending his father before his father passes away, but that the Torah mentions his father's passing before as not to make a statement. So any like reflections or thoughts on that? So I'll tell you what came to me. And what's beautiful about discussing and learning Torah, and I always say that, is like there's for us it's about what's coming to me. What can I learn for this in my own life? And there's if you learn Torah with someone else, you'd be hearing all kinds of other I see what I see from these passages. So what came to me is that there's so many times like where certain people do certain things and we take that as excuse for us to do something. It's like, oh, well, my neighbors did that, or my uncle did this, or whatever. It's like we look to other people and then we create like basically what we decide is okay or not okay. And to me, what's so interesting is that God is basically saying it's really ultimately the child should stay with his parent, with his elder parent, and be there till till the elder parent dies, to be there emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to help the parent, so the parent doesn't have to be alone in the old age. So normally that's the case. However, in Abraham's unique, individual, personal situation, he was called to leave. But yet the Torah doesn't want to make a big deal about this, to say, we're not telling you that just because Avram did it, that this is good for you. That like this is an excuse, like, well, Avram left his family, so his parents, so I don't have any obligation to take care of my elder parents. Abraham did it. It's almost like God saying, like, you know what? In Abraham's story, that's what his soul needed. But you have to listen to your own soul. And this is, again, going to your body, going to your soul. Like, just because for one person, their soul's journey led them to this kind of healing, or this kind of situation, or these kind of things worked for them. Every person's soul is different. Everyone's mission is different. Everyone has a unique purpose. And so as long as we decide what works and what doesn't by other people's stories and journeys, then we're constantly running our life by the coulds and the shoulds and the woulds, and we actually get further away from our own truth. The way it's supposed to be is learning from other people, seeing what works, hearing ideas, and learning more, but then bringing it to our own self and saying, is this true for me? Does this resonate for me? Does this feel right for me? Because just because it was right for Avram, even as the forefather, and even though it talks about it in Torah, it still might not be true for us. So I just found that interesting. Like, that's what I took from that.
I have something that I took from it. First of all, how important the obligation of parental respect is. And secondly, but what preempts that obligation is here. It says the fact that God prevented Abram from fulfilling this obligation. So that seems to be the only, well, in my opinion, from reading this, that seems to be the time when you can, the exceptional case when you, I don't want to say don't have to fulfill the obligation of parental respect, but when it's not, when that's the thing that rises above that, when God has a different plan for you. That was my takeaway.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then bringing that to our own life, sometimes, like, again, listening to our body, sometimes we'll feel very compelled. Like, let's say we live in a city where our parents are, or, we've always run our life a certain way. And then we have this very strong, like, I have friends who lived here, and they lived near their parents. And I know their parents really, really wanted them to live here. But they became more religious, and they went to Israel for the summer just to visit, and they were there. And she told me, my friend, she said, we were here and it was like so crazy, but our souls were telling us, you need to move. Like, you need to come, go back to California, pack up and come live here. And they're like, it's so crazy that, our parents live in Palo Alto, and we know they really wanted us to stay here. And it was like, they were very, very active in the community and helping in the local school and doing all kinds of things. And they felt so, torn, because our souls were telling us that we should be in Israel, and that's our right next step, but we're leaving so much behind. Like, again, communal responsibilities, family. Ultimately, they moved to Israel because they couldn't deny that there was something very strong pulling them. So it's like, again, it's like, if you feel that, you have to trust that.
I just found one more thing on page 69, because this idea, or not this idea, but this obligation of parental respect comes into play throughout the passages. So there it says that God instructed him explicitly to leave. Until God instructed him explicitly to leave, he was still legally bound to observe the commandment of parental respect. Then we go on to Lech Lecha, and the beginning of that also harkens back to the family home again, and how important that is. So the tie to that is just reinforced throughout. And I feel like, it just shows how difficult it is to break away from that tie, and how it really takes something so powerful and meaningful and a real voice of God to get you to move off of that obligation.
I also think that's true. And you know, it's interesting, like we spoke about, honoring your parents is also in the 10 Commandments. So it's obviously something, and it's so interesting because at the same time, like honoring your parents is in the 10 Commandments and it keeps mentioning here, but at the same time, God told Abraham, leave your parents' home. And then it also we just did a marriage class and we showed in the first Parshas Bereshit, when it talks about creation and God made Adam and Eve, it says very there clearly, like leave your mother and father, and so that you can cling to each other. So there's like, it seems like both is going on at the same time. And like, what does it mean? Like, to what level is our obligation and how tied in are we supposed to be? So it's a tangent, but I think it's important, and I'll bring it in, is that because it could be so confusing, you know, like where does the responsibility start and end? And the answer is that God is telling us, leave your parents when it comes to like emotional enmeshment, or, you know, feeling deeply responsible that like you put them before your relationship with your spouse, or, you know, if it comes in where your connection to them is causing marital issues with, you know, with your spouse, or to the point that like emotionally you're still feeling that like little child feeling, you know, you need their validation, you need their love, or, you know, you have a responsibility for their emotional well-being. And numerous times in the Torah, and in Kabbalah also, it talks about journeying beyond that, because in order to be a healthy adult, and in order to have a healthy adult relationship, you need to nurture yourself beyond that and become a full adult inside, not just an adult like physically, you know, where you're tall and get wrinkles, but like emotionally mature your inner child inside of you, where you're not looking, you know, to have that enmeshed relationship with your parents, or looking to please them, or make decisions based on what they decided you have to live, or still looking for that validation. Like, we need to switch our higher power to a higher power that's much bigger than that. But at the same time, we have to be respectful, and honor them. So it's like, yeah, you have to move on and know Lech Lecha, like go to yourself, find your own identity, and create your own value system and build your own life and put your spouse first. But then it's like, you know, gratitude and checking in and honor, and the reason why it's one of the 10 Commandments, because it actually could be very difficult, especially if we journey on and we have different value systems, or we had a troubled relationship with our parents. It's very hard. You know, it's like either we're maybe tied in a non-healthy way, or we journey beyond and then we're like, goodbye, we don't need you. And so the Judaism is always about middle road. It's not black and white, you know. Heal, find yourself, and then come back. And, you know, maybe you won't call them because, you know, you need them to validate you, or like that little inner child relationship where you're looking for something from your parent. But what if you come back full circle and you just call them to give, to love them, to honor them, to give them, you know, love and gratitude, and check in and help them when as they get older and they're feeling lonely, and like, just as a mitzvah, do it for God. That's actually why it's the 5th commandment on the tablets are the side of honoring God and relating to God, and then this other side is relating to our fellow, more universal laws, and honoring our parents are on the side of God, because a lot of times to do it well, it's you do it for God. Like, I'm doing this as a mitzvah. I'm doing this because it's the right thing. Okay. Let's do one more, 5. Let's see. Malvina, you have the text, right?
You're on mute, Mom.
Beautiful nails.
Oh, they look terrible. I wanted to fix them. I had no time. Wait.
They look good through Zoom.
Well, wait, all right, let me find it because I have it. 5. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
Page 78.
Okay. Let me see.
The one with the map on it, Mom.
The map? I don't have, oh, I see, okay. Okay, had it backwards. Abraham took his wife Sarai and his nephew, and his nephew Lot and all their possessions that they required, as well as the souls they had acquired. Wait, I can't. In Haran. Both the followers they had persuaded to accept monotheism, as well as the servants they, you see, it's very hard for me to see it. They had purchased. They set
Okay.
out. God had not told them where to go, so they continued on their original journey heading towards Canaan. And as opposed to their first attempt, this time they actually entered Canaan. Continue.
Beautiful.
Abraham
Thank you.
traveled.
No.
What?
We'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay.
So they didn't know where to go, but Avram followed his intuition. And actually, what's interesting is the land of Canaan, which is the land of Israel, he knew it was given to his forefather Shem, which was one of the sons of Noah. And so Noah had 3 sons. One of them was Shem, who was the Jewish nation descends from Shem, like Abraham was from Shem 10 generations later. And because of actually talking about parental respect, because Shem was so respectful of his father, while his other son, remember, like was the opposite, he was promised the land of Israel. So our roots as the Jewish people and our connection to Israel goes all the way back to the time of Noah, which is pretty strong, powerful. So it was just like this intuition, and he trusted his intuition, he trusted his body, and he arrived to the right place, even though God didn't explicitly tell him. He told to him through his intuition. Now, it's interesting because it says the words that they took their possessions, their servants, and then the souls that they acquired. So it says that the followers, they had the souls that they had acquired, and both the followers they had persuaded to accept monotheism, as well as the servants. So it almost seems like Abraham persuaded people to believe in God, and other places that said that he didn't persuade, he just did his thing. So I actually looked inside, and it says the deeper explanation that he didn't actually persuade anyone, that he was like a big bonfire of light, and that there was many souls, many people that were attracted to his energy and to his mission driven and to his love of God and his willingness and his faith, and his energy was so attractive that when he moved, so many people wanted to follow him. And it's actually, this is just an interesting thing, that there's so many times that we want maybe to create change, right? Or we want to influence our spouse or our children or our friends or, the politicians or the world. And we want to wake people up and just be like, hello, what's wrong with you? Don't you come on. And Avram's a really powerful example of influence, because wherever he went, he just acquired more and more and more and more followers. And it was never controlled. He didn't walk around with a megaphone screaming his passion and screaming his truth. He literally just was himself. And for him, it was about my personal relationship with God. I love God. I have this relationship, and I do what God says. And just by him having this, because it was so authentic for him and so real, that it transformed who he was. He had this aura about him that people just flocked him. And it's very powerful for us. The message is that if we want to be vessels of influence or powers of influence, and change in the world, the way to do it is not by trying to change and not by trying to control, not by, preaching anyone. It's by transforming ourselves, by refining ourselves, by acting in the way that we want others to act, and by doing it authentically and by loving others. Like, even though Abraham, he was different than everyone, and he wasn't an idol worshiper, and he in God, he clearly didn't believe in idols, and he thought it was ridiculous, but he did his little part. Like, he wanted to show, when he broke down the idols, but like, overall, he treated people with love and respect. And what was I saying? Anyways, the point is that if we treat others with love and respect, and we just authentically live the way we want to live, and the things that we believe in, automatically we will have influence. It's by being what we want. Like, we want others, we want our kids to be compassionate and empathetic. Then we work on our own compassion and our own empathy, and our kids learn from us. We want them to be charitable, then we need to be charitable. We want them to be respectful to others, we need to be respectful to others. If like, we're like, put on a big smile to people outside of the house, and then we close the door, roll our eyes, and we're just like, oh, that idiot and this idiot. Of course our kids are gonna copy and learn from us. So, and even if we think like, who am I? Like, I can't really make influence, I don't really see anyone. I'm like caught up in my day-to-day life, and, just see like the couple people in my life. Like, we by us, like, being handle, like, by us elevating ourselves and working on our characters and being kind people and loving people, and, working on our trust and being the best person we can, we have more influence than we realize. So that's it. It's an example that I was thinking of, that, and this is actually, again, I'll share a personal experience that I had in my process, like really letting go. I always thought that I had to be like super, super, super strong. Like, I had this belief system, like the way I grew up. I was one actually of 13, and my sister Khani is one of my sisters. There's 9 girls in our family. And I just always, it was just this feeling that I had, that if I have to be strong, I can't be too emotional. I don't want to take any space. I don't want to have any needs. I'm just going to like hold up this family and be, perfectly strong and make everyone happy. And part of my process, like this is a bit like, I hope it's not like too intense, but I had this like vision of myself as I was like letting go. And I imagined myself being this like strong pillar. It's like, imagine like Statue of Liberty, right? It's like standing there like a statue. And I imagined myself like this pillar statue with like my hands up and being really strong and like holding up my house and holding up my family and like being strong for everybody. And then it was like, I was ready to let that go. But I felt like, if I let go and I'm not going to be super strong, then is everything going to crumble? Like, is my family going to crumble? Like, what's going to happen? And like, I was so scared to let go. And then it was a process, but I was like really meditating and asking God to help me like let go of feeling like I have to have it all figured out and being strong and holding everybody up. And like, I can't sustain that anymore. And that vision was replaced by a fireplace. And all of a sudden, like, instead of being a pillar, it was like I imagined myself a fireplace. And what I saw is that I was like able to relax. And then like, just like a fireplace on a cold winter day, it's like everyone wants to come and huddle up and drink, hot cocoa and like get close. It was like I was able to just relax into this being this fireplace. And then, my family gravitated around me, and I didn't have to be so strong. And it came to a vision. But it was so powerful for me, because it was like I understood that it was like, no, Nechama, it's not about like being so strong and having it all figured out and like saving the world and being in control and being strong. It's about like, just keep putting wood into your own fireplace. What are things that give you joy? What are things that make you happy? What are things that fulfill you and make you feel whole from inside? Like, connect to other women and listen to music and go outside and walks and take baths and like just take care of yourself. And like that's like the fire, you know. And if you're joyful and you're happy and you're feeling connected and you full of joy, like people will gravitate to you and your family will like just want that and be like, you don't even have to communicate. It's not even words. It's much bigger than words. It's a state of being that's energetically attractive. So that's where
lovely. That's
yes.
lovely. I appreciate that. Really lovely. Thank you. And I need to go.
Thank you. It was, yes.
Thank you,
Well,
Nahama.
thank you. And
Thank you.
you're
That
welcome.
image is very powerful. I just had one question. The word persuaded, what's the Hebrew word on the other side and what does it mean?
Yeah, it's not, if you see, it's not bolded. Hi, Shayla. It's not bolded.
So it's not going to be in there.
Literal
It's an interpretation.
It's not, it's interpretation, but actually the Hasidic Kabbalistic interpretation is that he persuaded people, but not by the persuasion that we think. It's that through being a fire.
Yeah.
Like a bonfire, which you're
Thank
welcome.
you so much. And hi, Shayla.
Well, this inspiration should get of the week. All right.
Thanks so much again. And my
Thank
mom says
you.
bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye,
See you
everyone.
guys. Thank you.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.